Hi, I'm Snez, personal trainer, healthy lifestyle coach, and your guide to feeling your best. This podcast is a segment from my weekly radio show, Wellbeing Wednesdays, broadcast live on 88.6 Plenty Valley FM. It's all about sharing real, practical tips to help you move more, eat better, and live healthier without the overwhelm. Let's dive in, shall we? Coming up next, talking about crushing your sugar cravings, and we're going to deep dive into a powerful topic, and that's how to get rid of sugar cravings and the surprising connection between your gut bacteria and those cravings. And oftentimes we do get those intense urges for sweets, and we feel that we lack the willpower, and that we just have a sweet tooth, or that we just really love those dessert and those sweet foods. But the reality is there's something actually going on that may be having an impact outside of just your love for sweet foods. And it could be that those cravings aren't just about willpower or bad habits, but it's the gut bacteria that's playing a role and making it a lot harder for you to make those changes. So I'm going to uncover the science behind those sugar cravings, the role of gut bacteria, and what you can do to reset. Now is a great time to be talking about resetting and also feel a little bit more in control of your relationship with sugar and with sweet foods. So inside your gut, there are trillions of bacteria, live bacteria. Some are good and some are not so good. And these tiny bacterias influence much more than your digestion. They affect the way that you feel, that fogginess, your mood, your immune system, and they even affect your cravings. And what's really interesting is that harmful bacteria, or the bad bacteria, absolutely love sugar. They thrive on it. They multiply. And when you consume sugar, these bad bacteria are basically getting a feast and they start to overpopulate. But what happens then is that the bad bacteria can actually send signals to your brain to fuel your cravings, to keep you keep you bringing more and more sugar into the system fundamentally, so that they can feed and continue to multiply and colonize in your gut. And this creates an interesting feedback loop, because you crave the sugar, you feed the bacteria, they grow stronger, and they intensify that feeling of the cravings, which then loops back to the start, where you give it more sugar, you feed more bacteria, more growth. And it can land you, especially if you've been doing this for some time, it can land you in quite a challenging cycle that can be quite hard to come out of. And at the same time, the good bacteria, meanwhile, on the other hand, which thrives on fiber and whole foods, they get crowded out. And in fact, the bad bacteria create an acidic environment that doesn't even allow the good bacteria to be able to survive in that environment. So their numbers really begin to drop, which affects your digestion and your clarity and a whole host of other things that come with that. So some of the signs and symptoms that you can tell if you are stuck in a sugar craving cycle are things like intense but repetitive cravings for sweets or for sugars, or things such as rice crackers. So those refined carbohydrates, those simple access to sugar that will digest, they're starting to digest in your cheeks and it's hitting the blood glucose before it even gets to the stomach. So if you are feeling that regularly throughout the day, you are feeling that intense craving, and it's not like, oh, that would be nice. I wouldn't mind, that snack or that chocolate. It's like, I need this. I have to have this. It's feeling distracted. And this is all of the impact of that communication of that bad bacteria with our system. But also feeling shaky or irritable or hangry, especially when you skip a meal. So definitely we should feel hungry, but it's a very different experience when you do have an overpopulation of bad bacteria that are surviving on this sugar. And when those blood sugar levels go down or the sugar in the gut goes down to feed this bacteria, you've got a situation where it feels a little bit more intense and unshakable. And also things such as digestive discomfort, such as bloating, that you feel in your tummy or gas are all definitely signs and symptoms that you are stuck in that sugar craving cycle, as well as mood swings, brain fog, like if you just feel that furriness or difficulty decision making or that fatigue. These are all signs and symptoms of that imbalance of that gut bacteria. And when you start, so what can you do to start to cut out the sugar? So what happens is when you decide, okay, look, I've heard this information, it's good information, it sounds like it's related to me, I'm feeling some of those symptoms, that's definitely my experience. So what happens when then you decide to go on a diet, you're wanting to drop a couple of kilos, and then you decide to reduce the sugar intake? Well, when you start cutting sugar, the bad bacteria slowly begin to die off, and this can feel very, very uncomfortable. You can get things such as headaches, you can get tiredness, like a fatigue that you can't sort of sleep off. Your cravings will get worse for the first few days after, where the cravings can become so intense that you can almost talk yourself out of anything. And all of a sudden, those goals that you set for yourself before you started to reduce the sugar, you're just like, oh, who cares? Like, what's the big deal? Who cares what Snez had to say? Who cares about anything? Like, I need this, as if it's going to make that much of a big deal. Like, what's one chocolate is going to make that much of a difference? These are some of the things that we will start to say to ourselves as a result of those cravings that are being dictated by that gut bacteria. And this is called the die-off phase, or it's the fancy name is the Herxheimer reaction, and it's your body detoxing, but it can make quitting sugar that extra bit challenging. And it's in those initial sort of 2 to 10 days that it can feel really quite challenging, and it can feel like it's something that's unachievable to you. But knowing that this reaction is going to happen and that it is temporary can really help you to stay strong. And remember, the battle isn't just with yourself. The battle is against this gut bacteria. So if you know this, then you can stay strong for those tough first days. Maybe get some pain relief for the headaches. Maybe do it on a day where you can take some downtime from work or from family or from responsibilities, where you can kind of just get through that die-off phase. But then from there, what you can do from there to start to rebuild, firstly, that's a really good thing to do, is to feed your gut right. So then you can start to increase the concentration of good, healthy bacteria, so we can start to balance that gut out. So doing things such as increasing your fibre intake with veggies, with beans, with nuts and with seeds. Good bacteria absolutely love these foods, and so you will create an environment where you've got food for them to feed on and to therefore multiply. Adding in fermented foods like kimchi, like sauerkraut, plain yogurt, to add in some extra good healthy bacteria for the probiotics, and making sure that you are staying hydrated. So water helps to flush out toxins and also helps to support your digestive system to work more effectively. The other thing that you can do is make sure that you are balancing your meals with protein and with healthy fats. So protein and healthy fats slow down the sugar absorption, even if you are having a meal that does have some carbohydrate in it, which carbohydrates and sugars, ultimately, they all reduce down to the same molecules in our system. It's just when you are incorporating whole grain carbohydrates as opposed to pure sugar, the whole grain carbohydrates are adding nutrients, they're adding fibre and all of those other minerals that are very good for us, rather than just providing the sugar. But when you are having these meals, adding in that protein and those healthy fats are going to help to stabilise your blood sugar levels. So what that means is something like, if you are going to have a pasta, for example, then adding in some chicken through the pasta sauce, not just having a plain tomato-based pasta sauce, whether you want to put in some meat, you may want to put in some good fiber and some healthy fats. You may want to pair that with a salad with some olive oil, maybe some seeds or nuts sprinkled in through the salad, for example. And then that does two things. It reduces the amount of carbohydrates that you're having, but also when you're combining with the protein and the fats, it's going to slow down the way that your body absorbs the sugar so that you've got a steadier stream of energy, but also you don't get this really huge hit of sugar for the gut bacteria to go woo and then multiply in. Balanced meals reduce the blood sugar spikes and also the dips that fuel your cravings. Mind your stress and your sleep. So stress hormones and poor sleep increase cravings and do negatively impact on gut bacteria. So practicing relaxation and prioritizing rest when you can get it is really part of the day-to-day habits that we need to have to look after our wellness. Also, just starting to make smart substitutions, replacing sugary drinks with herbal teas. So where you can, just reduce the sugar intake as best as you can. So swapping out desserts for fresh fruit and yogurt or dark chocolate even, where there is a lower concentration of sugar and a higher concentration of the cacao, which is actually quite good for us. Also, exercise is going to help you to regulate blood sugar levels and help to also reduce cravings. So breaking free from sugar is quite a process and it doesn't happen overnight. It can take quite a few days. And what I've found is that by the time you get to 8 to 10 days of that die-off period and that struggle, then you can get to day 11 and 12 and just feel like, wow, it's not even calling at me anymore. I don't even feel like it. Like I can, see the chocolate biscuits in the cupboard and be quite fine with not having one. So it does take time, but every smart choice that you're going to make is going to help to balance out that good bacteria and improve your well-being. And I think the biggest take-home message is that the cravings aren't just your lack of willpower or your sweet tooth. And in fact, when people say to me sweet tooth, what I hear is an overgrowth of bad bacteria. So just being mindful of that. So rather than just trying to be disciplined and eating less and still having all of that around, let's try instead to understand the signals from our body and from our gut and just start to put some things in place to rebalance that, because then you will find that you won't have to have that real argument with yourself to avoid the sugars. You will just get to a point where you just don't feel like it anymore. That real calling and craving does actually disappear. So give that a go. Again, it's just about taking some small steps. And if you decide to pick a time where you're going to try and balance out that gut bacteria by reducing your sugar intake, just understand the process, but give it a go and take your first steps. And I am telling you, you will be pleasantly surprised on the other side of the sugar rebalancing journey.
Thanks for joining me on this segment from Wellbeing Wednesdays, as heard live on 88.6 Plenty Valley FM. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who might find it helpful and subscribe so you never miss a show. Want to catch the live broadcast? Well, you can tune in Wednesdays from 12 till 2 p.m. on 88.6 Plenty Valley FM, or find my info on Wellbeing Wednesdays with Snez, the Facebook group. Take care, stay healthy, and remember, it's the little choices every day that create big changes. Talk soon.